Hamlet. Author, William Shakespeare. Hamlet by William Shakespeare is one of the most iconic and profound tragedies in Western literature. Written around 1600, the play is set in Denmark and follows the young Prince Hamlet as he grapples with the death of his father, the subsequent marriage of his mother, Gertrude, to his uncle Claudius, and his discovery of Claudius' involvement in his father's murder. Hamlet's psychological depth, ethical dilemmas, and the themes of death, revenge, and madness make it an enduring masterpiece. Below is a detailed summary of the play. Act 1. The play begins on a cold night at Elsinore Castle in Denmark, where guards have been seeing the ghost of the recently deceased King Hamlet, Prince Hamlet's father. The guards bring Horatio, Hamlet's close friend, to witness the apparition. When the ghost appears, it is silent but ominous, hinting that something is wrong in Denmark. Meanwhile, in the royal court, King Claudius, Hamlet's uncle, has assumed the throne after his brother's death and has married Gertrude, Hamlet's mother. Claudius addresses the court, balancing political and personal matters. He attempts to soothe the grief over the late king while celebrating his marriage to Gertrude. Prince Hamlet is deeply disturbed by this, feeling that the marriage is hasty and inappropriate. His mourning for his father is contrasted by the court's joyful mood, and Hamlet expresses his disillusionment with life, famously uttering, "Frailty, thy name is woman." His melancholy and bitterness deepen. Horatio tells Hamlet about the appearance of his father's ghost, and Hamlet decides to join the guards to see for himself. That night, the ghost reappears and beckons Hamlet to follow. In a private conversation, the ghost reveals that Claudius murdered him by pouring poison in his ear while he slept in the garden. The ghost implores Hamlet to avenge his death but not to harm his mother. Hamlet is horrified and swears to fulfill the ghost's request, though he remains uncertain and conflicted about how to proceed. Act 2. Hamlet's behavior begins to change as he becomes consumed by the revelation of his father's murder. He pretends to be mad as part of a plan to investigate the truth behind the ghost's claims. Claudius, disturbed by Hamlet's odd behavior, sends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, two of Hamlet's childhood friends, to spy on him and discover the cause of his apparent madness. Hamlet quickly realizes their true purpose and mocks them. Meanwhile, Polonius, the king's advisor, believes Hamlet is mad because he is in love with Ophelia, Polonius' daughter. Polonius instructs Ophelia to reject Hamlet's advances, believing this will cure Hamlet's supposed madness. Hamlet, however, treats Ophelia with cruelty, distancing himself from her and rejecting any affection. Hamlet arranges for a group of traveling actors to perform a play that closely resembles the murder of his father, hoping that Claudius' reaction will reveal his guilt. He intends to use the play to catch the conscience of the king and confirm the ghost story. Act 3. The play within a play is performed, and as the scene of the king's murder is reenacted, Claudius reacts with horror and storms out of the room, which Hamlet interprets as a confirmation of his guilt. Elated but still tormented, Hamlet is summoned to his mother's chambers. Before going to meet Gertrude, Hamlet passes by Claudius, who is praying for forgiveness. Hamlet contemplates killing Claudius at that moment but decides against it because he believes that killing Claudius while he is praying would send his soul to heaven, which Hamlet does not want. Hamlet wants to ensure Claudius suffers for his crimes. In Gertrude's chambers, Hamlet confronts his mother about her marriage to Claudius, accusing her of betrayal and moral corruption. During the heated conversation, Hamlet hears a noise from behind the curtain and, believing it to be Claudius spying on him, stabs through the curtain, killing Polonius. Hamlet's actions mark a turning point, as he becomes directly responsible for death. The murder of Polonius escalates the tensions in the court. Act 4. Claudius, now fearing for his own life, sends Hamlet to England, ostensibly for Hamlet's safety but actually intending for him to be killed upon arrival. Meanwhile, Ophelia, devastated by Hamlet's rejection and her father's death, descends into madness and eventually drowns in a tragic accident. Her brother Laertes returns from France, furious over his father's murder and sister's death, and Claudius manipulates Laertes into seeking revenge on Hamlet. Claudius and Laertes plot to kill Hamlet in a rigged fencing match, where Laertes will use a poisoned sword, and Claudius will offer Hamlet a poisoned drink as a backup. Hamlet, however, escapes the assassination plot in England and returns to Denmark, determined to confront Claudius. Act 5. The final act begins with Hamlet in a graveyard, contemplating death and holding the skull of Yorick, the court jester from his childhood. Hamlet reflects on the inevitability of death, pondering its meaning and universality. As the funeral procession for Ophelia arrives, Hamlet is overcome with grief and guilt over her death. The fencing match between Hamlet and Laertes takes place in the court, with both men unaware of the full extent of Claudius' plan. During the match, Hamlet is wounded by Laertes' poisoned blade, but in the struggle, they exchange swords, and Laertes is also wounded by the same blade. Gertrude accidentally drinks the poisoned wine meant for Hamlet and dies. In his final moments, Laertes reveals Claudius' treachery, and Hamlet, finally taking decisive action, kills Claudius. Hamlet, mortally wounded, forgives Laertes and dies in Horatio's arms, asking him to tell his story. The play concludes with Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway, arriving to claim the throne of Denmark, as Hamlet predicted. Themes and analysis. Revenge and justice. At the heart of Hamlet is the quest for vengeance. Hamlet's internal struggle between action and inaction drives much of the play. The destructive nature of revenge leads to the deaths of almost every main character, questioning whether justice can ever truly be achieved through vengeance. Madness. Hamlet's feigned madness is a central element of the play, though the line between true madness and pretense blurs as the story progresses. Ophelia's genuine descent into madness provides a tragic contrast, as she is overwhelmed by the chaos around her. Death and mortality. The play constantly contemplates the inevitability of death, particularly through Hamlet's soliloquies and the graveyard scene. Shakespeare uses Hamlet's reflections to explore the nature of existence and the uncertainties that come with death. Corruption and betrayal. The political and familial corruption in the Danish court is symbolized by Claudius' murder of King Hamlet and his manipulations. The play suggests that moral decay in leadership corrupts the entire state, as seen in the phrase, "Something is rotten in the state of Denmark." Action versus inaction. Hamlet's indecisiveness is one of his defining traits, and his inability to act swiftly leads to much of the tragedy in the play. His philosophical nature leads him to overthink, often paralyzing him at critical moments. Hamlet is a rich and multifaceted work, offering timeless insights into the human condition, the complexities of morality, and the consequences of revenge. Its intricate characters, especially Hamlet, continue to captivate audiences and readers alike, making it one of the most studied and performed plays in history. The end.